What's up, everybody? Time for my spoiler review for Child's Play. First off, let me thank everybody who watched my spoiler-free review. It's by far probably the most quickly succeeding review that I've ever done. It's at like almost 50,000 views right now in just over a day and a half. Got a lot of different new subscribers, at least like 800 just on the time span of that video. So welcome to all you new subscribers. But most of all, just thank you guys for watching it. Even the guys that disagreed or hated the movie or whatever, I've had very few nasty comments from people. I've had to delete a couple of them, but nothing as bad as like Halloween 2018 or anything. So thank you guys for making that review a success. It was totally enjoyable to talk with all of you about this remake. So now we're gonna dive into the nitty gritty. We're gonna talk about everything in this. So obviously I've said it already, it's in the title, it's on the fucking thumbnail. This is a spoiler filled review. I'm talking about everything, all the details in Child's Play. So if you've not seen the movie, you don't wanna know everything that happens, pause this video, watch my spoiler-free review if you haven't already, go watch the film, come back, and then watch this video. But if you've already seen the movie, or if you don't give a shit about spoilers, let's get cracking. So, Child's Play 2019 opens up with basically a commercial for the doll, the Caslin commercial. You get Tim Matheson, we know from a lot of movies. Animal House, I believe, is one of his biggest ones. Hopefully I didn't misquote that, otherwise everybody's gonna let me know down below, but I'm pretty sure he was in that one. Van Wilder's dad, that's one of the ones that I remember him from. But you have Tim Matheson giving a commercial for the Buddy doll, your new best friend, this new Caslin device that's going to control all of the other Caslin devices. And it immediately cuts to this factory in Vietnam where they make the Buddy dolls. And something that a lot of people predicted, which wasn't really too hard to predict given the plot synopsis, there is a disgruntled worker who's getting yelled at by his supervisor, and he gives a big fuck you, takes off the safety parameters, takes off like the morals, takes off the language barriers and everything on this Buddy doll that he's getting ready to finish, puts it into a box, and then jumps to his death. So there's our origin for Chucky. And now let me stop here. This is one thing that I have seen a couple of people say that was a very lazy and a very uninteresting origin for Chucky, which I wouldn't exactly say that you're wrong, but I will say this to defend it. Number one, when you're going against the origin of serial killer Charles Lee Ray, who finally gets cornered by the police, gets gunned out in a toy store, and uses his voodoo skills to put his soul into a doll to escape death and continue murdering, a lot of origins are going to pale in comparison to that. So I didn't really expect the origin or the reasons why Chucky goes haywire to be anything more than what it was, just a way to get the doll where we need him in the storyline. Beyond that, I just think it's okay, it's fine. It's 45 seconds of the movie just to get the plot rolling. The film is not hinged upon what made Chucky go nuts. The film is hinged upon the relationship between him and Andy and the heartbreak and the strain and the terror that comes out of him going haywire while trying to be his best friend. That's where the movie's focused on, not the origins like a lot of the older Child's Play films where it was based off of Charles Lee Ray, his origins, and how he's trying to get back into a human body. So that's what I gotta say about that. So immediately after that, you get Zed Mart, which is basically like Kmart, some kind of like a department store that has a little bit of everything. Aubrey Plaza works there. She's a single mom. Karen Barkley, the mother to Andy. And we get some good scenes with Aubrey Plaza giving her signature kind of snarky humor. A guy tries to bring it back, a Buddy doll, try to return it because he wanted a different doll, didn't realize it was a ginger doll. And she basically tells him to fuck off, which anybody that has worked in retail, you're like cheering her on. You're like, yes, you stuck to your guns. You basically called him an idiot without calling him an idiot. And you stuck to all the guidelines of customer service etiquette, while at the same time not giving this douchebag what he wanted. And anybody that works in retail tells you you will get tons of people that come in for stupid ass reasons and you have to sit there and just fucking bend over and take it. So I enjoyed that scene. I have a retail background, so. There, you have the introduction to Karen Barkley, you have the introduction to this doll already being on the shelves for almost a year. It's something that people still want, but it's not like this hot commodity item that it probably was when it came out. Buddy 2, I believe there was already signs, is like something that's going to launch very soon. And you get introduced to Andy when she goes home. Andy is, in this one, he's a little bit older. He's probably like, 11 years old, something like that. And he's a lot more kind of introverted than most kids. He kind of stays inside. He's on his phone all day long, which this film does make some commentary on like addiction to technology, our kind of reliance on technology, the dangers of technology. And they really hammer that home with him. Just basically his eyes are glued to this broken phone all the time. You find out there was something that caused her to be a single parent. They don't necessarily get into it unless I missed it. Either the dad died or the dad left, which I believe is the more appropriate assumption because of a line that he says later about everybody leaves. So, single parent, not very wealthy. The kids, they just moved there. Not the best apartment building. It looks a lot like the original apartment building too. I thought that was a nice touch. But this kid, Andy, basically just wants to hang out in his house. She wants him to go out and make friends. So she kicks him out. He goes into the hallway and lets her believe that he's out there. And then we get introduced to this new version of Detective Mike, who, for the most part in this film, I liked him as a character, but I do feel like he was a little bit too comedic. He comes in, he starts joking with him and giving a little back and forth banter right away. Same thing with Karen. And we get introduced to her boyfriend, which I'll have to look up his name. Pause. Shane. Aubrey Plaza's boyfriend, Shane. Andy walks in, they're making out, like, oh shit, cover everything up really quick. And this guy is a dickhead from the very beginning. And as somebody that grew up with a single parent and somebody that has been friends with kids that had single parents, I really liked how they portrayed Andy's response to this guy. Because even though, like, right away, he's not, like, necessarily the biggest, like, most overwritten douchebag in the world, it kind of slowly peels back the onion that he's a little bit of a dick. But his response to just not liking this guy right off the bat is 100% authentic for how a kid that age responds to a mom's boyfriend or a dad's girlfriend. When you got a single parent, the kid never likes any significant other because they always have, that's not my father, that's not my mom. They're right around that age where they think they know everything in the fucking world and they're always right. So there's always that little bit of a battle for attention. I like the fact that it just felt very natural that he just immediately did not like this guy, and you bought into it immediately. You didn't need any explanation. You didn't need any, like, flashbacks of him beating Andy or anything. Just you walk in, you see the situation, you go, I remember what that was like. So I like that. Now we've got pretty much all of our main characters introduced by this point in the film, and Karen goes back to work and another person comes in, which is a mom, and she says, look, I bought this buddy doll, the thing's got red eyes, it's malfunctioning, can I have a refund? Sure, you can have a refund. She takes it to the back, and because Andy has been so introverted, she realizes that this might be something he can play with, and she takes it home to him instead of giving it back to Kazlan for them to, either discard or refurbish. Takes it home to him. And when he opens it up, I like the response that he has, because one of the biggest things that everybody bitched about with the trailers especially and with the announcement, they're like, why the fuck would a kid that age have a doll that's stupid, the movie's gonna suck, and his first reaction is something that I actually assumed was probably gonna happen. He tears it open and he goes, these things aren't even that cool. It's like a year old or whatever, and he's not really that impressed with it. But they start playing around with it, Chucky imprints on him, and he's not functioning perfectly right away. But quickly we get into this relationship that starts budding between Andy and Chucky. And this was one of my favorite elements of this new remake, is that they really explore the friendship between Andy and Chucky, because there was never a friendship between these two characters in the original series. There was Andy's presumption that Chucky was his friend for like the first act of the 1988 film, but we all know from perspective of audience that it was just manipulation. Tell your mom I want to watch the Channel 6 news, like stuff like that. This one, Chucky is programmed to do nothing else but be Andy's best friend. And when he first comes on, he comes on a little bit strong. He's like very almost overly committed to doing whatever he can to be his best friend. We get the introduction to that really creepy Buddy song, which Mark Hamill delivers really well. And it's innocent and sweet, but also like when you listen to it from a certain perspective, it's very creepy and a little bit stalkerish. But I like the Buddy song, and it's something that might even get stuck in your head a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, I've kind of been humming it a bit since I've seen the movie. But you get this little, it's not necessarily a montage, but you get a nice little chunk of the movie that's focusing on this growing friendship where Andy not only enjoys all the functions that Chucky has, but he starts to like the fact that he has this best friend. They're playing chess and, he's teaching him certain things, and you get to a point where this is where it starts to show what's gonna go wrong with this relationship, where the house cat scratches Andy and he's got a little cut and starts to bleed, and Chucky's like, Kitty hurt Andy? Like, what the hell just happened? What's going on? And he's like, yeah, it hurt me. It hurts like hell. And he goes away to bandage it up, comes back, and Chucky's strangling the fuck out of the cat with the red eyes. Which, to me was just like this really tense way to quickly show how things are going to go wrong with this relationship. That's why the safety parameters are off and everything. What's going to go wrong is he's so determined to be his best friend that anything he interprets as a threat is going down. It's like a Skynet thing where they realize that we're the threat. So I like that. And you slowly start to see these little things that Andy notices that maybe Chucky's a little bit off with their friendship. And he even utilizes Chucky to meet these kids outside of his apartment building that he's kind of been looking outside and wanting to talk to them but not really knowing how to because he's introverted. And the kids like him immediately because he has this doll. That's how kids are. I mean, that's another thing that was actually genuine is, aside from kids just naturally having this chemistry, sometimes kids like you because of what you have. Like, oh man, that's that new skateboard I wanted. We're best friends now. It happens. So this is where you get into the friends, and which was my main negative of the film, was the utilization of these friends, the characterization of these friends, the acting performances of these friends. They're not garbage, but to me they are total dead weight on the film. They have no purpose whatsoever other than providing like something to annoy Chucky because he's getting friendships with somebody besides Chucky, which I understand. But they weren't utilized well enough to merit that. They could have easily just had this movie without that motivation. He just gets psycho on anybody that he deems as a threat to Andy and it would have been just fine. So you get the one kid who's kind of like the taller, heavier set one who's just very weird and awkward. He's the one I didn't feel like had a very good performance at all, and I didn't enjoy his character. Then you get the random girl who seems like rough around the edges, and there's like a moment where it feels like this is going to be like Andy's love interest, but they never explore it and they never go anywhere with it, which is another reason why it just feels like dead weight. And then you get the other kid who's not very impressed with Andy, thinks that he's a douche or whatever. Like, why are we hanging out with this fucking kid? Which I never liked that kid just because of his attitude. He's the jerk of the group, you know, he's the one that thinks that he's badder than everybody else. So none of these three characters I cared for at all. I never really bought into the fact, aside from just desperation to be accepted, that Andy would hang out with them. But nonetheless, this does set off one of my favorite parts of this film. This movie has a lot of really cool references in it. Not only from Orion, this is one of the companies that produced this movie, so you get some E.T. vibes here and there. There's a RoboCop reference, but there is a Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2 reference as well as a plot point that's utilized through the middle act of this film that I thought was awesome. They're sitting there watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2, and Chucky's watching them enjoy seeing these people get butchered and chainsawed and seeing a guy get his face cut off, like Caroline Williams' friend, Stretch's friend, getting his face pulled off as like a little trophy for Leatherface. And he misinterprets this entire situation of them enjoying this movie as them enjoying this carnage that's happening in this movie. So he goes and gets a knife and comes back in and starts quoting things from the movie like he's going to kill them. And Chucky holds him down, or Andy holds him down, and Chucky accidentally cuts part of his arm. And this is where I realized this movie was going to be much more emotional than I thought it was going to be, because going along with that new kind of exploration of their relationship, once that happens, Andy kind of shuts Chucky off completely and just leaves him in a room, doesn't really acknowledge him. And there's a scene where it's filmed from this perspective, like if I'm Chucky, and Andy opens the door and just kind of comes in and drops his backpack, and Chucky's holding a little teddy bear, and he just kind of looks over and he goes, "Andy, I'm sorry." And he just barely acknowledges him and shuts the door and leaves, and Chucky's just like, I don't understand what I did. Like, it was so sad. I felt sorry for Chucky. I never thought that I would say those words. I love Chucky, but I have never felt sorry for Chucky until this movie, and they did really well with that, having that emotion with that relationship. Eventually, the cat ends up dead. I think Chucky thought that maybe if he killed this cat and got rid of this thing that annoys the piss out of Andy, that would be like this thing that would fix their friendship. To come in, the cat's disemboweled, which they don't really show it, they just show you enough to get an idea of what happened. And then this is where Andy's like, holy shit, something, we gotta stop. Like, this is just going too far. And one of the first kills, hopefully I'm not missing any plot points, but I'm just kind of trying to remember best what's going on. The first kill of the film, aside from the cat, might be in my top 5 or 6 kills in this franchise. Definitely top 10. And it is Shane, the boyfriend, which the more and more you see this guy, the more of a douchebag he seems like. He just walks in, but like, you know, randomly tells Andy, like, clean up your room, and walks away. And there's a part where Chucky's basically being utilized by Andy and his friends to play pranks on Shane, like making scary faces, and he ends up playing audio that he recorded of Andy like, Shane's such an asshole, and Shane's such an asshole, and Shane gets pissed off and goes in and basically shakes the shit out of Andy and is like, you want to be a fucking man and you got a problem with me? Say it now. And I really loved how Chucky reacted in the scene. And this is one of the scenes in the movie where the doll actually looked good. There are scenes where the doll works. This is one of them where he's looking at Andy and Andy's like shook and scared, and he's looking at Shane and Shane's screaming at Andy and kind of looking back and forth, and then he leaves and Andy's just having a fit to himself, not realizing that Chucky's listening. He's like, oh, I just want him gone, I just want him out of here, I want him to leave. And Chucky just looks at Andy and his eyes turn red and he just has a really cool creepy smile, which is a scene they kind of show in the trailer when he smirks. I really liked that. I liked the doll's look, and I liked that element of Chucky where he's just like, all right, motherfucker, you're mine. And then you get to the kill scene with Shane, which they did a really nice way of making you hate this guy even more, which makes a great kill scene that much more satisfying when it's a character you can't fucking stand. He goes home and the motherfucker's married. He puts on a ring, his wife, his kids are all coming out, Daddy, you've been at work all day. And you're like, oh, fuck this guy. And he gets one of the best deaths in this franchise, in my opinion. He's taken the Christmas lights off that his wife has left up. You presumably is like 3-4 months after Christmas. It's like, that's fucking lights. And bitch never takes these fucking things down, take it down. And he's got the lights strung off. And then this is where I like the utilization of kind of how they utilize Chucky in the original film, where you don't see him, you just kind of see what he does. Or the ladder starts to shake and he's like, what the hell? And then you hear like stuff moving in the bushes. The ladder ends up getting knocked off and the dude falls and his ankles just break and the bones split out to the side, and he's like, ah, and nobody can hear him because everybody, all the kids and everybody are inside on their iPods with big ass, Beats by Dre headphones, are sitting there like, yeah, just chilling out while their dad's getting fucking butchered in the backyard, which again, just that addiction to technology thing, that shutting yourself off from the world, little subtle things this movie's not getting credit for. And he tries to crawl away, which is a scene we've shown in the trailer, tries to crawl away with the Christmas lights hanging on. You see Chucky's hand turn on this lawnmower basically, and it goes and it starts hitting the Christmas lights and pulling the guy in further, and it ends up going all the way up to his head, and when it finally gets there, he's holding it and he's keeping it at bay, and Chucky just jumps on and gives a line that I actually thought was pretty damn funny from earlier in the movie where the kids are trying to get Chucky to say all this cool stuff, and the African-American kid in the group, the one that thinks he's a badass, keeps trying to get him to say, this is for Tupac when he's doing different things. And you didn't realize at the time what it was going to be utilized for, but he jumps on top of the guy and he's like, this is for Tupac, and just starts stabbing the shit out of him. And he lets go of the lawnmower and it fucking scalps his entire hair, and it flies across and lands on a watermelon, because it's like a watermelon patch that he's crawling around in. And Chucky just starts stabbing the fuck out of him. And I was like, that's pretty cool. But it's the aftermath that makes it even better. And it makes it even cooler that we got that Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 reference and that whole scene regarding that. Andy wakes up the next day, gets out of bed, walks by this thing on his cabinet, goes outside, and you look and the camera just shows it. And it's like a watermelon from the patch with Shane's face cut off completely, just on it, wrapped in a bow like a present for Andy. And he walks by, and a good 10 seconds comes by, and he runs back in, what the fuck? And Chucky's like, I got rid of him for you. Yay, we can play now. Are we having fun yet? That was awesome. That whole thing was great. And then you get into this subplot in the second half of the second act of the film where Andy's trying to get rid of the evidence of this face. And he wraps it up in some wrapping paper. His friends come over, they're fucking freaked out. The one kid's throwing up. They wrap it up, and they end up getting busted by Karen, and he makes up some bullshit that he's gonna give it as a present to Detective Mike's mom for helping him with some homework, and she's like, all right, come on, I'll walk with you. And he's like, fuck. So he has to go, and I love the interaction between him and, I think her name was Doreen, but basically Detective Mike's mother, where she's like, hey Doreen, Andy made you a present for all the times you've been helping him with his homework, and he's kind of giving her that look like, I made up some bullshit, please save me. And she's like, oh, yeah, it was no problem. Come on in, Andy. And she plays along with it and gets this kid out of trouble. I thought that was awesome. So now you have this whole subplot where there's a severed face in a detective's home waiting to be unveiled, and they make this deal that, hey, my birthday's in a couple days, you can bring it over and we'll open all our presents together to buy him some time. And he keeps trying to find ways to get into this apartment to get that fucking face out of there. Awesome stuff. I had a blast with that whole section of the movie. I thought it was great, and I loved how it tied into Texas Chainsaw 2, which is one of my favorites of that franchise. And this is the point where Andy realizes that Chucky he's too much. There's no saving him, and it's a really emotional scene, like one of the more emotional scenes in the movie, where he basically draws Chucky into this room so that him and his friends can hold him down and tear out his power supply. And as soon as they hit him and he's on the ground, he's like, Andy, what's going on? No, I thought we were friends. I was like, oh man, God, do we have to do this? I mean, he could just kill somebody every once in a while. Come on, it's Chucky. I felt bad for Chucky again. What the fuck? What's wrong with me? Why do I feel bad for a serial killer robot? I don't know, but this movie was effective at that. So they tear his power supply out. They throw the shit away into the dumpster, and this creepy ass janitor that we've been seeing the entire movie, which they also show in the trailer where Chucky just kind of like sits up, gets a hold of the parts and realizes that he can refurbish this himself and sell it on eBay. So he refurbishes Chucky and basically puts everything back to normal, which makes him better and improved than what he was when Andy first received him, to where all of his Wi-Fi powers and all of the other functions that he was supposed to come with actually work now. And now you have Chucky fully fucking unleashed, and this was just a thrill ride from this point to the end of the film. And another great, gory ass, very well crafted, creative kill scene. Just like the I keep wanting to say pumpkin patch, the watermelon patch kill. You get this guy, and again, they do a great job at making you want to see him die. He's been creepy the whole movie, and you don't really understand why, and you find out very quickly while Chucky is supposed to be dismantled and laying kind of dormant on this table, that this guy has been putting hidden cameras all throughout this apartment building, including the shower where he's getting ready to look at Aubrey Plaza disrobe, and he's like, oh yeah, oh yeah. And Chucky just sits up in the back, and you're like, again, just like with Shane, you're like, oh, get that motherfucker, Chucky, come on, baby. And that's, again, I love the fact that you still get to cheer on Chucky. It's not to the point where Chucky is unsympathetic, or you have fun with the fact that he's fucking these people up because you don't like them and they're scumbags. They don't deserve to die necessarily, but fuck it, it's a movie, let's see him die. So you get this guy, and Chucky basically comes up, and again, you utilize the way that they did in the 1988 film where it's POV shots and everything, and he's hidden and he's running around, you can't quite get a glimpse of him, starts stabbing the guy in different places and running around, he can't get a hold of him, and he jumps on top of this table saw and he's looking around, and the thing ends up getting turned on by Chucky, and he grabs the pipe above him and the table knocks over, and he's holding onto it, and Chucky uses his little Wi-Fi powers to start turning shit on, and he turns the temperature as high as it'll go, making the pipe start to become scalding. And I was like, oh, please show it. Please show it. This movie earns its R rating, baby. He falls and his fucking leg just gets sawed completely off. You see blood squirt everywhere and a severed leg just falls down, and I was like, ha ha! Carter's candy, bitch, yes! So now Chucky's going full blast. He's got all of his abilities. He's got this vendetta now because he feels like he was discarded, and he's going to be Andy's best friend, whether he likes it or not. And he basically poses as another buddy doll. He puts himself in the wrapping package and sticks himself on the outside of the door of the dickhead kid, Detective Mike's son, I believe. And another reason why I hate these kids, as soon as they open up this buddy doll, they go and get Andy, like, come on, come look what this guy got. And they go into the room and he's like, ha, my buddy doll actually works. Look at all this shit that he's doing. Your buddy doll sucks. And I'm like, you know what? Fuck these kids. I really don't like them. Like, they're gonna keep pushing it, and I'm gonna want them to Summer of '84 Mr. Mackey their ass. But Andy moves on. He still hangs out with these kids. They call the Chucky doll Chode. That's the genius name that this dickhead kid gives his doll that's supposed to be his best friend, Chode. So he's hanging out with these kids. You could tell he's a little distraught about what he had to do with Chucky, like he just lost his best friend, quite literally. And he's a little bit, obviously, torn up about this whole thing with the severed face that he still has to take care of. And he eventually works his way into Detective Mike's house for dinner, has this little, witty conversation with him back and forth where Doreen comes through and he's showing her how to use the Buddy app that she just downloaded so that she can call a Caslin car and all this different stuff. And as soon as they leave the room for a second, he grabs the present and hauls ass out of the room and gets rid of the evidence. So I thought that just that whole plot point I thought was great. It was one of my favorite parts of the film. Now you have where Andy is in the Zedmart store with his friends, and his mom is working, and Chode, which we know as Chucky, basically gives some sinister lines that lets Andy know, I'm Chucky, I'm back, and it's time to fuck shit up. He gives him a line basically on the lines of, you know, if I can't be your best friend, nobody can. And he's like, Chucky? And he gets into a fight with the dickheaded kid, and these friends abandon him just like that. He's a freak, forget him, we're not hanging out with him anymore. One more reason why I don't like any of them. That is, I really do not like the friends in this movie. And now you have Aubrey Plaza in full-on mom mode. Now she's like, what the fuck? Chucky's a doll. He's gone. What are you talking about? You're being a little asshole. And we're at that point, like in the original film, where nobody wants to believe Andy. And Andy's trying to tell her in a really emotional like delivery. I love this kid's performance in this. Like, you have to listen to me. Nobody is listening to me. Chucky is doing all of this. And they found the body. They found out that Shane was dead. All this other stuff is built up inside of Aubrey Plaza's head, where she's wondering why the hell all this stuff is happening to her. And she starts to not necessarily point at Andy, but there's definitely something going on that Andy knows about. And she doesn't really know how to accept this, which, you know, Aubrey Plaza did a great job in this film. So we're in that point again where this is full-on child's play. You got murderous doll, you have kid that knows the truth, and you have parent that doesn't fucking want to hear the truth. So tension all around at this point. And you end up where the kids and Andy and Karen and a whole bunch of people are at Zedmart for this launch of the Buddy 2 doll. Chucky finds his way to the store by basically hitching a ride with Doreen and her Caslin car so that he can murder her, because she's like, oh, you're gonna be my best friend, Andy. He does one of those lines where she says something about affection towards Andy, and he's like, bitch, that's my friend. And you get a pretty cool kill with her too, because this is one of the more tense scenes in the movie. You know, you see where her car is being controlled by Caslin. It's like a drone car, and Chucky is in the vicinity, so he starts making the car do a bunch of crazy stuff, and it swerves around, and you get that great shot from the trailer where her car is flying all around, and then it zooms forward and just slams on the brakes, and it pans back, and the lights are just from behind showing Chucky just sitting there. And she just sees him enough to be like, what the hell's going on? He flies her all around the parking lot, slamming into stuff, and when she finally crashes and she's all bloodied up from the crash, you hear Mark Hamill's voice, and Chucky's basically taunting her through the speaker system of the car and making it sound like he's all over the place. And it's a really creepy, tense scene. They did really good with this. And then he pops up out of nowhere and stabs the shit out of her. Which was, again, this is the one kill in the movie where you get to where you're like, oh, that's not cool. She was a cool lady. Like, this is where it's now Chucky's full-on villain. You're not really enjoying what he's doing necessarily anymore. Now we're at Zedmart. The Buddy 2 is launching. Chucky is there because he just killed Doreen. And the Buddy 2 dolls are essentially supposed to be like the more advanced dolls. They have different hair colors. They look slightly different, still the same face, but different hairstyles. There's bears, and you get the Zedmart massacre, which is another very cool scene in this movie that will be pretty high up on my kill list ranking because of just the carnage that ensues. This guy comes out with, you know, he's like, fuck my job, and he's got this big ass buddy head, which looks ridiculous, and he's walking through, and you see just when they're about to unveil and, like, you know, kind of like cutting the rope ceremony, they're about to unveil the buddy doll, Chucky stabs him in his throat, and he kind of falls into the crowd, and he's bumbling around, and he pulls the mask off, and this little girl's smiling, waiting for her buddy doll, and blood just squirts right in her face. That was awesome, and everybody freaks the fuck out right when all these drones that Chucky's controlling start to rise up and start flying around and cutting people's throats and slaying into everybody. He starts controlling all the Buddy 2 dolls, which is a sequence that I kind of, not necessarily predicted, but knowing the abilities of the doll, I kind of came up with that concept in my head a few times, like when I was streaming with CP, or maybe even on one of my videos where I was talking about this film in production, where I could see Chucky being like the alpha and controlling some other dolls like drones to do some work. I pictured it like the scene in Gremlins where you get Stripe and he's walking up the street and he turns around and he starts walking again to get all these gremlins. This was a scene that kind of gave that to me, but it was cool and it was effective. It didn't go into weird Cult of Chucky territory. You get Buddy 2 dolls and drones flying around slaying everybody when he shuts the fucking security doors and locks everybody in, shuts the lights off, everybody's running around screaming. You see people like crawling out of aisles and getting dragged back in. You see like bear Buddy dolls peeking out at people. It was really cool. Very cool sequence. Maybe not long enough. I could have used a little bit more of that. If there's like an unrated cut that with the extended sequence with that, it's gonna be great, but that was a very cool sequence. And then you end up where the final situation where Chucky has now got Karen tied up gagged in the warehouse section of the store right as Andy and his friends, who are now friends again because they believe him, are trying to escape the store, and he basically locks everybody out and leaves him inside with Chucky to handle this situation that he feels responsible for. And a really cool directed scene where Karen is basically tied up and she's got a noose around her, and Chucky turns on this crane slowly lifting, and it starts to hang her while he's trying to, kind of keep Andy at bay, and Andy's trying to fight Chucky off to get to his mom. It's a very cool sequence. And another sequence where I feel like the doll looks really good and has full-on red eyes and it has that whole Chucky kind of attitude look to him. And there's even a CGI shot where Chucky dives with a knife, and you could tell it's CGI, and it actually looked pretty good. One of the few CGI shots that are in this film. Something that I didn't give credit for because I kind of harped on how I didn't really like the design of the doll. This movie, I do have to give it credit for staying predominantly practical effects. It's all pretty much animatronics, very few CGI shots, at least that I could notice, which is a good thing. So that's something that I forgot to mention in my spoiler-free review, that I do think credit needs to be given due to this movie for doing that, because they could have easily had CGI Chucky through 60% of this, and I would have hated it. Most people would have hated it, but they could have done it. But they didn't go the lazy route, except with the design. But we have this whole showdown with Chucky and Andy, and again, in a really emotional thing where he finally cuts his mom free, and Detective Mike shows up at the last second, puts a bullet in Chucky, and then Chucky, still kind of coming after him, and Andy comes over and stabs him right in his power cell. It's emotional. It's a friend killing another friend. Even though he's unleashing carnage, there's still a little bit of emotion there. And it would have been kind of a boring way to kill Chucky, but they followed up really nicely with all four of the kids, Andy and his three douchebag friends, where they all have like a weapon in the back alley, and they just start beating the living shit out of the carcass of Chucky and smashing everything to pieces, like totally making sure that this doll is dead, which is one of those things where it's kind of playing against slasher tropes, where he doesn't just stab him and he's like, all right, everything's cool, let's go on, guys, and leave the doll sitting here so his eyes can turn red and come back in the sequel. They smash the shit out of this doll. Everything's, the carnage has happened, Chucky has been defeated, the emotions are high, Karen comes through, gets a few blows in as well. She believes her son now, Detective Mike believes Andy. All of that's resolved, Andy's in the clear. And you get basically when they're cleaning up all this stuff for I believe it was like a panned up crane shot where they're cleaning up all the stuff at this Zedmart, you hear the voiceover of Tim Matheson as Caslin saying that, they've went through the legal system and they hold no responsibility whatsoever for the malfunctioning doll, and they'll continue to pursue the production of Buddy dolls, which would have been enough of a tease of a sequel. But you see where they've recalled all the current runs of dolls, Buddy and Buddy dolls that are still in stores, and they're placing all these boxes there, and for a second one of them glitches with red eyes, which I've had people ask me, a couple of people ask me their interpretation of that ending. I've had people say what does that mean, Chucky, another doll, a completely other doll has now malfunctioned and there's more than just Chucky. I viewed it as with Chucky kind of being in the cloud, having all these abilities, his AI, his personality, his soul, if you will, has went to another doll when he died. So now it's very easy for them to bring him back in a sequel, which I do think this movie deserves. That's pretty much it. That's the whole plot of the movie I tried to run through. But I think this movie does deserve a sequel. They got a lot of things right. They did a lot of things that I enjoyed, a lot of very creative, big risks. There were some things that they didn't do too well. I feel like Detective Mike could have been a little bit better. I feel like the kids, the friends could have been a lot better. And Chucky was something that I was mixed on. I think that he was utilized very well for the version of Chucky and the storyline they were going for, with the friendship and the emotions. That stuff was all brilliant. I liked his humor. I don't necessarily like how he was very kind of robotic and there wasn't a whole lot of personality to him. It was just kind of him spouting off lines in a very funny way that he had heard somebody else say. But at the same time, like I said in my spoiler-free review, these are issues that I'm sure MGM is listening to, because they want this to become a franchise, and I'm sure they will very easily rectify in a sequel. There's been many movies where you have criticisms of the first one, you get the sequel, and they improved everything. You could very easily improve Chucky, which is the main thing that they need to improve, with a sequel. The look, very easy. Buddy 3 comes out, and Buddy 3 looks like a damn good looking doll, maybe closer to the original Chucky design, or at least not as strange looking as this doll. And they have more personality parameters. They're not necessarily robotic. They have more abilities like Arnold Schwarzenegger did in Terminator, where he can just full on talk like a normal person, and then Chucky's essence goes into that doll for the sequel. Boom. That's fixed. Easy. So I really enjoyed this film, guys. Like I said, there were some missteps along the way. I do definitely prefer the Brad Dourif Chucky to this one, at least so far with this first film, but I like the different version. I'm totally on board with having two different Chuckies that have very little comparison to each other, thank God. Two different Child's Play franchises, which look like they're gonna go in completely different directions. I don't see this Chucky having a son at any point, or son-daughter. Glinda. But I like it. I liked what it brought. I enjoyed what it gave us. For the most part, I was very happy and I was satisfied with what they gave, and I do look forward to a sequel. It seems like a lot of people are really liking this movie, which I was honestly surprised with. When I dropped my spoiler-free review, I was honest in everything that I said, but I was expecting to be in the minority. I figured a lot of people would walk in, they would get turned off by this version of Chucky very quickly, and they would not allow themselves to enjoy the rest of what the film had in store. And much to my surprise, 70% it debuted on Rotten Tomatoes, which I don't really give a fuck about Rotten Tomatoes, but it is cool to see Child's Play have a fresh rating. And now it's like 62%. It's dropped, but it's still pretty damn good for a remake slasher film that everybody thought was going to be trash on the internet. I think that the movie has a lot of potential for a franchise that they can tap into a lot of different elements, just like they did in this, where the Universal franchise didn't necessarily go in that direction. I am still curious to see what Don Mancini does with this TV series. I don't have a whole lot of faith in him. I've said this numerous times, just because he burned me with Seed and he burned me again with Cult, and I just hope he learns from his mistakes instead of just saying, fuck what all you guys want. I'm gonna take the Rob Zombie route. I'm gonna do what I want to do, and you can like it or hate it. I don't like that approach, but I like the fact that we have two completely different franchises, and I hope this makes enough money this weekend to merit a sequel, because I really enjoyed it. So that's about all I got to say for my spoiler review, guys. Just diving into the details a little bit more. Not a whole lot of secrets or anything like that that I had to kind of hold for this. Just kind of describing scenes with a little more detail and kind of how I viewed them. So what did you guys think of the movie overall? Did you like the Texas Chainsaw plot line? What was your favorite kill? What was your favorite Chucky line? Do you agree with this being, you know, deserved of a sequel? Do you think that they will fix the design of the doll, or do you think that they're just going to be stubborn and keep with this design? What are all of your thoughts? Spoil the shit out of this movie and talk about everything down in the comment section below, guys, and we will talk about it. And like I said in my spoiler-free review, keep your eyes peeled on this channel. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you're new to it, because there is a lot of Chucky content coming your way in the next week or so. I've got ranking of all the Chuckies. Tomorrow I'm going to rank the entire franchise again and include this remake into that. So now we have 8 films to rank. I'm going to be ranking all the Child's Play kills, another great video that I loved doing. The Halloween video that was so labor intensive. I'm actually looking forward to doing something that has less than half the kills of Halloween, so that should be a fun one. I'm also going to rank Chucky's deaths, just a lot of Child's Play content. And I'm actually debating on doing a video of like my sequel idea for Child's Play 2, or whatever they would end up calling it. So if that's an idea you want to see me do, let me know too. But I have a lot of Child's Play ideas to just relish in the fact that we have Child's Play on our brains right now before more fucking Halloween 2 news starts coming out, and nobody will shut up about that until 2020. So let me know down below, guys, your thoughts on this film. Please like and share this video. Hit that subscribe button if you're not already a subscriber. Check the video description below for social media links like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Spreadshirt store, but I also have my TeePublic store, which I'm starting to promote a lot more and might actually convert completely to that, which you can actually see right now. Just scroll down and my TeePublic store is right there on a little shelf. You can scroll through and see all the different designs for t-shirts and caps and mugs and pillows and all kinds of cool stuff, little cut stickers, all that nice, all using designs all utilizing designs by the great Woody Bowen, a friend of mine that does a very good job. There's actually some Chucky designs down here too. There's one like this one right here, the Fuck This Movie shirt. You also have the Let People Like thing, something that he made for me whenever I was like the sole person on the YouTubes defending and championing this movie for a little while there before it started to bring everybody into its camp. So check all that out down below, guys. Also my Patreon page, which is a great way to give back to this channel and help this channel grow while getting cool exclusive content for your eyes only. And if you want to check out some more of my videos, you could check all that out by clicking right over here.